Welcome to The Story Tinker, a Webtoons and Witcher podcast for superfans with scene-by-scene analysis. Featuring sharp co-hosts for a fuller picture, we dive deep into character psychology, relationships, and theories. We'd love it if you could like, subscribe, comment, and rate us on all podcast platforms and social media. For bonus content, you can support The Story Tinker on Patreon. Let's begin. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 124 of Purple Hyacinth, Grevious Gift. And we are with Veronica and Fwoot.
Hello.
Although you should be able to guess that Fwoot would be her because it has Bellarcy or Bella in it, and that equals Fwoot. So come hello. Fwoot is on that episode.
I got awoken from my little crypt for the Bellarcy episode, or just the hint of Bella.
Mm-hmm. I remember you signed up for that one episode because there was like one panel of like
because I've had like a lot of school stuff lately. I've restricted myself to only coming on for like the Bella and Darcy stuff. And then there was that one episode and I was fighting with myself on whether I should come on or not, and I think I came on. As Mindy said.
Well, always a pleasure. All right, so this episode has a lot, and we're all excited to get into it because there's a lot of content, a lot of, as you said, for world building. So all right, so we start out with your favorite character.
She is. That's accurate. Bella is my favorite character.
Okay. So she's in her trailer and she is dressed very classy because the lady has impeccable fashion. And she is on a stool reading the note that from a while ago, Darcy slipped under her pillow. So we just see the note, we see her looking at it, and she crumples it up and throws it into the wastebasket. Totally unsurprising.
We just had like the sequel circus arc. I spent every single one of those episodes hoping it would end with Bella coming home and finding the note underneath her pillow. Finally. So it's funny because I asked on the Discord, I was like, what was on the note? And you said what you thought was on the note, and if you want to go ahead and say it. I think it's basically a copy, or if not the same note from episode 89, which is when we saw Darcy and Bella interact really for the first time following Bella finding her in her house in episode 88. And so in that note, I'm pretty sure it was an address to meet up because Darcy needed help with something. We don't really know what yet, but she went to Bella for help. And so I'm pretty sure the note was an address for them to meet up. And I wouldn't be surprised if this iteration of the note had maybe like some more like context to it, like just Darcy being like, hey, I need your help or something, and she signs it, because the other note did have her initials on it, and that's all we really see of what's actually inside of it.
I'm looking at that episode again now, right? It has an NED and then it says, here's the location we can meet again.
So I think this is Darcy's second attempt at meeting,
which is going over so well.
Really.
Bella looks very excited about helping Neyra out.
But it's fine. Even if Bella doesn't accept this reunion, this episode does set up another one, which I cannot wait to talk about.
How many letters will she toss in the trash before she finally agrees to meet her?
It's like, hey, did you get any of my emails? I'm calling you.
Message blocked, or this number is no longer in service.
Delete.
Darcy's probably in a modern alternate universe, Darcy probably has a list of alternate accounts because Bella keeps blocking her.
I love that theory. I want to make that canon in the multiverse. It's perfect.
It just reminded me, oh my gosh, when I was 18, 19, I can't remember, one of those, there was a guy and
there was a guy
we communicated and we were supposed to go out, and then he changed his mind at the last minute, which turns out was because of my parents. I found out years later, whatever, long drama story. But I ended up I wanted to send him something, but I didn't want him to know it was me. So I made a whole new email account just for him. And I sent him something that I thought he would appreciate. And he was like, oh, thank you. This is nice. It was like some meme. He's like, who is this? And I was like, I don't want to tell you. Really? Why not? Like, why don't you tell me? And I just never answered. And like now it's like, I don't know, 12 years later, whatever. Now we're friends. Like all of us are friends because, didn't work out with him, but I married my husband and now we're all friends because we're very similar. Like he was very similar to my husband and we're like, the guy had the same interests. So, and yeah, so I have like, I should message him and tell him, remember like 12, 13, 14 years ago, that person who emailed address, that was me. Yeah, I'll have to do that. Let me open it up right now, actually, so I don't forget. I can't, hold on. I'm gonna open up that message. Let's start a message to him so I do not forget that. I was tell him what I did as a 19-year-old. Anyway, sorry. So Bella and Darcy and me, basically, same person.
Mm-hmm. Truly.
Darcy Kenny in it.
The life imitates art.
Well, I mean, that's why we like the story, right? Because it reflects real people and how they act.
Going back to our other conversation.
Yeah. So now we have the 7th's office. We have Redcliff's office, and we see Bella leaning against the bookcase. And just from her posture, you can tell she looks contemplative. She looks like she is thinking about something serious. Mm-hmm. She doesn't look too happy either.
Yeah.
It's a very intense stare in that scene. Like, and I have to say, I'm always living for whenever we get a glimpse of number 7. Just because it's like, it's that juicy secret that like, because all the apostles are kept under wraps every time I see one of the apostles, I'm just like, yes, more info. That need is being satisfied. And I love the expression on her face though, because it really is kind of hard to discern if she's kind of like, it almost looks like she's observing or testing or waiting for some information from 7 in the conversation. But because of the note, it could also be a combination of that and putting the note together. So I really think that the skills and illustration have just continued to excel in terms of close-up shots because it does convey a lot of emotion.
I love your analysis of that because right now my main thought is like, oh my god, she's wearing pink eyeliner. It matches her hair.
The eyeliner is fly. Let's be clear about that too.
It's interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Please go. You can go.
Okay, I'll go. At what you were saying, Veronica, about her expression, I think that it's very appropriate for Bella, particularly for her expression to be a little inscrutable, because she's a character, like when she was first introduced, and for much of the time that we had with her in the beginning, we all thought she was just a cold-hearted assassin. Like that's the front that she puts up, like no crack. And only when we got that episode with Neyra did we finally see like there's vulnerability, there's emotion, but she hasn't shown us her moral compass yet, right? Like either she has no moral compass and she really is what she says, which is completely flippant and disregarding of human life, or she's really, really hiding it very well. But so the fact that her expression is inscrutable to me just really reflects where we are in this point in the story, where we don't know yet what Bella is all about. Like we don't know what she's thinking. We don't know what she's feeling.
She's a complex character now, which is cool.
Yeah.
And
Bella probably had my favorite character arc of season 2, and going into season 3, I think she continues to hold that spot just because of the evolution of her character. But I don't know if I would agree on we don't really know her moral compass. I think there definitely is some vagueness to it right now, but I think we're definitely starting to see more of her values and her priorities within those values. And so we in season 1, as you guys were discussing, we really only saw Bella as like, she looks out for herself and no one else. Like she would probably betray Kieran in a heartbeat if her job demanded it, or if it suited the needs of whatever her new mission was. But as we saw in season 2, that relationship with Kieran definitely does go a lot deeper than initially thought, and especially going into season 3 with episode 115, where they brought Fleming's body to the morgue. And Lauren has been asking Kieran about Bella, and we know that they have like some sort of pact. And we saw with Darcy, how there's a history between them, and Bella would actually put Neyra over Apostle Seven, who she has probably known a lot longer and who practically raised her since she was an orphan, raised her for like the last 15 years. So that's like a very big, I guess, shift in how we kind of perceived Bella, because she was making it very clear that she would choose someone that she cared about over someone who was closely affiliated to her job.
I co-sign that. I totally co-sign that. And I like how you were talking just now, and it brought to mind for me the parallels that you see kind of in terms of while we're seeing her dynamic with Kieran fleshed out a little more, there's also this parallel too of her with her personal life. And that moral compass is being illustrated from both sides. And it's going to be interesting to see how maybe, hopefully, in a couple episodes, we'll see how that kind of meshes together. And maybe we'll see a more rounded out and defined moral compass from there.
Absolutely. This episode really sets up a lot of things, particularly with Bella's character. And it does so in a way that when I was reading this, I was like, oh, the creators are so slick. They're so slick.
Okay, so I have some theories on where the story is headed, but we have to go through the scene, the scene to talk about it. But yeah, okay, so let's do that. So while she's waiting with her arms crossed, not looking very excited, we have a Kleck and we have a very dapper gentleman walk in. Okay, like I know we don't like Redcliff, but like he knows how to dress.
Yeah.
Well, she learned it from him, right? They both like father, like daughter, I guess.
I just drew both of them actually for the PH anniversary event, and so when I saw this episode and I saw him walk in, I was like, my timing is so good. But also drawing him, like, it kind of gave me more appreciation for his design, because I do really like his design. I hate him as a character, but he does look fly as hell.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, yeah, he can look good. I'll accept that. But it's the insides that are rotten. And I really hope that Bella can like rip up some of his clothes or something in spite, just to like see him look less good, because he looks too good.
Let's be real. That mask is probably the best mask out of all the apostles. I'm just saying.
Agreed. It's my favorite.
And actually, I like that you bring up character design, because I really feel that is one thing that is really nailed throughout the series is character design, in terms of illustrating, like, it doesn't just look good on paper. It's one of those things where we can see, like, he's a great example of, we can physically see in the little details, even though we haven't seen his face yet, or we did see his face, but I can't remember. I have to look up the episodes again. Regardless, the little touches and the little details, the earring, the flourish, and the extra color to his mask, his dapper and dandy outfit, as you so put it, all contribute to, it actively illustrating visually his wealth, his own regard for, in a room full of anonymous people, he chooses to be the flashiest one. His arrogance in that way. And it really gives you just that visual cue that you need as a reader to be able to tap into the fact, like, okay, I see where this guy is going. And it really cements those little character details and really helps to fully flesh out the kind of person that you're looking at, and what that can contribute in terms of the other dynamics in which this person interacts. So that's a really cool character design. I co-sign that.
Agreed. All the way.
Yeah, very well said. Yep. So he walks in. He doesn't just walk in. I think he waltzes in. This is more accurate.
Cliches.
And I feel like he looks like he's wearing heels. It's just like he should be wearing heels. That's his thing. I'm sure his deep start heels. So Bella says, so they're not coming off your head yet? Impressive. And Mr. Redcliff, as suave as ever, is like, as he sits down, ever doubted my capability to pull this off? Have you forgotten who I am, Bella?
Arrogance.
And that ponytail. Sorry, it's just it's incredible. That cravat, that vest, that like handkerchief. Woo.
The chain.
I feel like him and Kieran would go shopping together, especially like early Hyacinth. Kieran would go shopping with him.
Yes, he would go shopping to date, like to go on a date to impress Lauren. A day after they got exploded.
I feel like in the perfect reality where Redcliff wasn't a shitty guy, he would take Bella to go shopping to like revamp her look before her date with Darcy, Instead, he has a knife to Darcy's back, but it's whatever.
Yeah. This man, fashion sense. His office is really nice too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm just looking at the fabric of the chair and I'm like, I recognize it. Anyway, it's pretty classic. Yeah. Anyway, I think my mom's linen looks like that. Anyway, she sits down, she puts the file on his desk, and she also, now we see more of her outfit. Speaking of fashion, and she looks amazing in green. She matches the chair and the marble like clock. Anyway, she looks great. And she says, you've been playing with fire. And now we see that his chin, I thought it was actually a bruise. I thought it was fire, but no, it's a bruise, because we can guess that like Apostle 4 had his way with him. So
I think it was Apostle 3. Sorry, I'm
sorry, the torture. Yeah, 4 was the spot.
One of them.
Bella in like a dark green with something I didn't know I needed. And I gotta say, she's giving like Flynn Rider core, and I'm here for it. It.
Yep.
And with the corset too. Oh my god. A little down bad for her, but it's okay.
Yeah, she is a very beautiful young lady. Yeah, so we see he's obviously had some negative encounters with the Phantom Scythe, and he's like, and I will burn them all to cinders when the right time comes. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that's how you felt, boy. Yeah, so he continues. He's like, I've agreed to play their game for now, but all the trump cards are in my hands. Which, like, wow. Okay, so I didn't know he felt so negatively towards the Phantom Scythe. Like, is this a new thing just because he got beat up and he's resentful, or was he always feeling this way? That's one question. And the other thing that I'm curious about is like, I did not know he's so confident, and why. Like, yeah, let's hear it.
I feel like this is kind of this wasn't actually a surprise to me. It was just a verbal confirmation from him directly in terms of his plans. But I think one can kind of guess that ever since Carmine Camellia and putting together an operation, knowing that you're sneaking around behind someone's back, even though they can totally spy on you, which they did. And they checked you on it. Clearly, you've got the evidence. But you knew that was going to happen, but you still risked it anyway. You knew it was a possibility. And you didn't bother to tell anybody. So you can kind of see that he already wants to use what he can, but he's already working towards breaking away. And people don't break away just because. They don't do it for show. Maybe he does it partly for show, but I can totally see that he does feel this way about the Phantom Scythe, and it kind of makes sense. It'll be interesting to see in the future if his whole philanthropy thing is partly an act for him to boost his own ego, or if it's something that he actually believes in. He has a tendency to speak with the phrases of "you've waited too long" and "we got to do something for the people," while he also does have philanthropic events. But his arrogance and his other character traits would lead one to kind of get the vibe that he's not necessarily just in it for the right reasons, because he does like that public spectacle. his major philanthropic event is a ball. You know, it isn't just giving money away. So these kind of things seem to indicate that he kind of always was different, and he sees Phantom Scythe. What I see in this episode is just verbal confirmation that Phantom Scythe was leverage for his own goals. And he saw how it could fit in with his own goals and dreams. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is someone, if we end up seeing down the road, if he lives long enough, because I question that at this point, I'll be honest, but I wouldn't be shocked if down the road, if he lives, at some point, there's some sort of revelation that, you know, this whole time he's hoping that he can end up leading the revolution. And that would ultimately mean he has an opportunity to rule and overthrow the royal family and for him to be the king. I would not be shocked if that's his long-term end game. And I think we see a glimpse of that kind of personality here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the confidence I was expecting, because as we've sort of seen, especially in the more recent episodes, he kind of does have a grip on the Phantom Scythe. Like he is very, very capable, and he has done a lot without the larger Phantom Scythe really knowing. The leader was onto him, but again, as he kind of points out in that one episode, I think it was maybe 114. He points out that like he doesn't need the Phantom Scythe, but the Phantom Scythe needs him, and that is very much, as you were saying, partly due to all the connections that he's built and the trust that he has gained from the people, whether it be inside the Phantom Scythe or not. And that trust and that following makes him very powerful, and it makes him a lot more popular than the other Phantom Scythe heads. And so his confidence, I hate to say, is well placed because he knows what he's doing and he has the support to back it up.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to finish it with interesting take, but I think I kind of co-sign, but I kind of also disagree a little bit. I think it's one of those things where, from what I could gather with the recent episodes, for me, my takeaway was more so that he definitely sees himself that way. And to some degree, he is backed up from the rest of the Phantom Scythe, kind of their dropping of details and kind of sort of what they've backed up also. Notice that Redcliff is not ultimately choosing at this moment to overthrow it. So if he is really popular, he could just make that move right now. He wouldn't even have to get a beatdown because he would be able to have the resources in that room during that meeting to do so. So although he does pose somewhat of a threat, I don't think it's so sincere. Otherwise, we would have already seen him overthrow the leader at the moment. So I think it's one of those things where in his mind, he's talking himself up. He's boosting himself up. I think the Phantom Scythe does recognize that he is kind of a liability. He's not insurmountable, but it would be a definite pain in the butt for them if they did try to challenge him now. And that's why they keep him on. They don't necessarily keep him on because they really think that he will destroy them, but they know that it could hurt them, and they would rather not get hurt now. They would rather wait to know what kind of appropriate solution they could have to him, and then they'll kill him. So it's more a matter of efficiency at the moment and not necessarily power versus power. I don't think he's ultimately going to be able to truly overthrow, but I wouldn't be shocked if that was his long-term goal. That's a really interesting observation. I like that you said that, Fwoot.
Yeah, actually, I like that a lot because I think there's a lot kind of playing into why they're keeping him, because he does also run finances, and so I sort of think that's a mix of like he runs such a like crucial part of the Phantom Scythe that they can't replace him because of that, and
it will be hard to.
Yeah, and then just in general, as we were saying, like the support he's gotten, but also like, as you were saying, it's like efficient to keep him around. So yeah, it's kind of why like he sort of has such like a checkmate on the Phantom Scythe, is because he has all of these aspects in play for him that he has spent years sort of building up to, and he has spent like years establishing. And so because of that, now he has such a foothold in Ardhalis, whether it be in the nobility circle or whether it be in the Phantom Scythe, that just he's like just powerful in that regard.
They put too many eggs in Redcliff's basket.
Exactly.
And this whole like politicking is just so real life. There's always these like dynamics where like there's people who are in power and they don't like each other, but they have to work together because they each have something that is necessary. So it's like
we have to work together to murder the royal.
Yeah. I also I also want to mention, because I think we're about to move on, Bella's line, "You've been playing with fire," because that stuck out to me, and I'm not sure if it was like intentional or not. I really hope it was intentional, but it's kind of like, you've been playing with fire, and Bella is a fire dancer, and her like devotion or trust in him has been very like clearly like waning, if it's not even there at all, and he too has been sort of playing her, especially as we see in 91, where he makes those threats about Neyra. And so, yeah, he's been playing with Bella as well, not just the royals or the PS.
That's a really good point. I love that. It is so very, very apropos.
Yeah, Redcliff and Bella have a lot of like fire references, because in 91 he said that like you wouldn't want to lose your spark, and I'm pretty sure there's like another match reference. I can't entirely remember. I do remember the spark one though. He's like, you wouldn't want to lose your spark. And then here he says, and I will burn them all to cinders when the right time comes. And now that makes me want Bella to burn him to cinders, because again, she's the fire dancer, and he is kind of like the one who lit that fire and gave her that position as a fire dancer. So it'd just be like, narratively, it comes full circle. Symbolically, it will come full circle.
Yeah, I mean, he also wanted to burn everyone up with all that nitro, so
yeah.
Dang. It's really interesting. I love hearing you guys talk about this. It's a really interesting twisted reference, because her name in the circus is Hestia. Hestia is the goddess of the hearth, and the hearth for ancient Greeks and Romans was considered, or for the ancient Romans, was considered the heart of the home and the heart of the city and civilization. You couldn't have a building without a hearth. And so it's interesting to note that she comes from two broken homes, and Redcliff, he might see himself as a father figure, but let's be real here, he's a user and abuser. And so it's interesting that Bella here, claims that she's a woman without a home, or she's an independent woman and she doesn't care about anybody. But interesting to note that she chose to still, I think there is some like little match girl references in the one episode, but she chose to keep that. And what's interesting is that the one thing that she says she doesn't need, the one thing that she seems to have done without for her entire life, is the one thing that she chooses to represent when she's in the circus, doing something she enjoys. So I wonder if at some point that would be really cool to see a full circle moment where she is able to somehow have a happy home by the end of all this.
Who would love that, right?
Yes,
she knows exactly how that happy home would look.
Yeah, with Darcy. But that's really interesting that you brought it up, because I second that entirely. It was when I heard you start talking about that, I was like, oh my god, because a really long time ago, when like Hestia was like when that reveal happened and we knew a lot less about Bella, I remember, I might have said it somewhere, but I remember thinking that it's so ironic that like the goddess of the hearth and home, right, the goddess of literally like homes, right, how it doesn't really seem like she has her own, right? Like she has these connections to people and she has these relationships, but it's not necessarily like she really belongs to any of them, right? Like even within the Phantom Scythe, she's very much like an independent like sort of associate. Like she's very independent to the Phantom Scythe, and she has said that like before, like, you know, I don't really care for any of the people around me. I'll just like kill them and get the money when the time comes. And with Kieran, around that time was when she had that little like duel with him after she killed Slake. So it was like, yeah, it doesn't really seem like they're on amazing terms either. But what I think it's really interesting is that once we bring like Darcy into the mix and we start learning more about Bella's family and then her situation with Redcliff, it's kind of like a home, like she has gone like 2 failed attempts, as you were saying, at sort of finding like a belonging with a family, because both of her father figures in those dynamics were like extremely shitty and are extremely shitty because it's not past tense yet. But it's I feel like what they're doing with Darcy is that they're kind of just like introducing sort of like an end game, as we were discussing. And so yeah, it's kind of ironic that although being the goddess of the hearth and home, she doesn't really have one herself. And I think that it is kind of leaning towards like she has to also make that choice for herself. Like, who is she gonna align herself with, especially in the coming like season, and what relationships is she going to actually prioritize? Because she can say all these things about who she puts before others, but you know, you kind of have to put it into practice as well. And so I'm really interested to see how Bella's choices are going to impact her. Because yeah, it's a little dicey either way. Like she can only, if she chooses like the PS, then she loses Darcy. If she chooses Darcy, then she loses the PS. And I don't think she can go without neither. I don't think she can go without either right now, because the PS kind of empowers her, you know, and so she clings on to that feeling of power. But we can get to that later when.
Yeah, we've lots of theories, and yeah, I have stuff to say also about that. But yeah, let's finish the episode. So I mean the scene. So Bella, leaning back against the wall, says, "So you're not done going behind their backs?" And he says, "Surprised," and he's looking at the file that you bought him, and it has Elvira and Ryan Fleming's and you know, her death reports presumably. And he says, "I thought you'd know me better after all these years, Bella." And she's like, "Nope, not that surprised, no. But do you really think the leader would trust anything you do from now on?" Just like, duh, that's a good question. And he smirks, or he snarls actually, as we are so helpfully told. "I couldn't care less about his trust anymore. He has no choice but to cooperate with me." This guy is remarkably confident for someone who just got beat up. I'm very impressed.
I know, right? Like, who does that? Who does that?
I really like confidence. Like, I think it's fantastic. It's a shame that it's Redcliff, but I mean, it's very impressive.
It's like the anti-Captain America. I could do this all day.
He doesn't have Artalus's ass, but that goes to Will. But
that was on point reference.
Well, does Kieran? How does it compare to Kieran?
Kieran has a concave for an ass. Everyone knows this.
I feel like it would go to Camera.
Agreed.
I feel like it would go to Camera.
I don't know. I think Lady A has the most voluptuous, you know, behind. Like everyone else is drawn pretty voluptuous.
You're right. Butler.
But I think
Butler.
Lady A has the most voluptuous charges against her for domestic violence. I don't trust her.
So it's all a bustle underneath that. Those hoop skirts, it's just a bustle, right? Whatever the word is for a fake behind.
But yeah, the scene where starting from like where Bella says, "Not that surprised, no." I think she's been testing him throughout the scene, but here it really stuck out to me that I was like, I think Bella definitely is trying to like see what's up with him. And because and I said this in the Phantom Scythe server, but I think that Bella sees how Apostle 7 is treating the leader as how Apostle 7 treats her. We know that from episode 115 that Bella's loyalty to the Apostle is all but non-existent, but so is the leader's trust in the Apostle as well. So when Apostle 7 says, I couldn't care less about his trust anymore, it very much could be applied to his relationship with Bella as well, because Bella also has no choice to cooperate with him, even though that she doesn't really trust him either. And so it would be really interesting if Bella is in fact testing him in this moment, because she's seeing Apostle 7's attitude to the leader that she can probably recognize to herself, and she can make her judgments on this kind of attitude in a setting where she's not the subject on it. And so it gives her sort of a new perspective as sort of like a bystander to the attitude instead of the subject as it. And so she can make those judgments and then apply them to her own relationship with him, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes total sense. I also think she might not just necessarily also, I think she's definitely testing, like you said, for her own edification, but also I think he's just handing her nuggets of gold that she can take back to the leader. And it's like, oh.
So I'm curious about that, because I feel it sounds like she's just asking for her own interest. Now I'm curious, like, will she report this to the leader? Like, he just trusts her completely, which is so funny. Like he doesn't even realize she betrayed him.
He's such a dumb butt.
Or maybe he does realize that she has betrayed him, and he's giving her nuggets to like sort of like, I don't know how this would work, but he's trying to like throw off the leader. And so he's giving her what seems like incriminating evidence, but then there's going to be like some reveal or something, and it's going to be like he was playing them the entire time. Because I feel like he should know, like, just the amounts of threats that he's given Bella. He should, like, any reasonable person would be like, maybe I wouldn't want to work for you, you know? But I think he probably still does have a lot of confidence in the like grooming that he's done. But yeah, I have questions for him, because like cutting off the like one person that, you know, Bella cares about does not seem like the best way to keep her loyalty.
Well, I think he is so self-centered that he thinks that he is enough. You know, he adopted her and he is the center of her world. And what more does she need? She just has me. Like, she's just going to be my loyal dog forever. I think that's the level of like selfishness and self-delusion, which, you know, we see he's a little delusional with. Okay, so he talks a confident game, but like, I don't know if I believe him that he's so indispensable, right? I mean, he almost got his head cut off last time that the PS met. So I think that a part of his flaw is that he is too confident, and like I think that'll be his downfall.
Oh, true. I also I do want to point out that like something I really noticed with this episode is that Bella also has a lot less, like, we were talking about how elegantly Apostle 7 was coming in this episode, but we're seeing right now that Bella has a lot less swag than she did in episode 91. And she's keeping her distance. Like in episode 91, she literally she sits down, like she comes in, she sits down, she even takes off the dude's mask, but here she is like keeping that distance, and in a little bit he's the one who actually approaches her. But it's kind of interesting because I think her discussions with Kieran have been sort of like catalysts for herself and how she like perceives things, because it feels like she recognizes a lot of behaviors and she can make like pretty decent like decisions for herself, or on how like she perceives things. Like she can make those judgments, but she doesn't really sort of mind those judgments until Kieran comes in and he's like, dude, are you sure this is okay? Like, because Kieran pointed out how like he asked her about what she would do if Redcliff or Apostle 7 actually did try to get her to harm Darcy. And that was very much like a follow-up to episode 91, where the Apostle does make that threat on Darcy's life. And Bella kind of snaps in that moment and she kind of like, I think she knees him really hard and Kieran falls over. And so Kieran is asking the right questions when it comes to Bella, and it's kind of like forcing Bella to be like, hey, I know you've made these observations, but when are you going to realize that these observations are actually really serious? Because I know they're serious, but you're not doing anything about them. And yeah, I think Bella's still kind of like hesitant about it because, again, the PS has a lot of familiarity for her. But her interactions with Kieran have definitely been pushing her to make to realize some hard truths.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a contrast to Kieran, because Kieran seems like he hated the PS as soon as he was in it, and he always was rebelling against it, and he always had a moral stance against it. And Bella is just having like her awakening now in whatever form. And again, like this is why I still think she's morally ambiguous, because either that or she just doesn't have the same sense of morality that Kieran does, because Kieran hates what he does. He feels regret about his assassinations, and she doesn't seem to, but she says some stuff further on about that. So I do want to do that. So yeah, like you said, he now approaches her. He's like, what's going on with you, Bella? There used to be nothing like multiple murders in a row to lift up your spirits. So he notices that she is more calmed down, more tempered down. And she doesn't even answer. She looks down for a while. She looks contemplative, and she says, perhaps I'm getting bored of killing useless people right and left. So I think she's being honest. I really think this is kind of like the first time that she is evaluating her choices and, wondering, maybe I don't want to kill people. And I don't know, the fact that she doesn't use moral terms like, oh, I feel bad for killing people, right? She's like bored and useless people. So I don't know if she quite has, a regard for human life. I don't know.
I kind of read this as Bella doesn't really care much for like the Phantom Scythe, right? She doesn't really care for any of its politics or its spat or its ideology or anything about that. And so everyone that she kills kind of is useless to her. It's just a job to her. These people hold no significant meaning to any aspect of her life. And that's also why, like, when Darcy's life is threatened, and specifically it's threatened that she's the one who has to kill Darcy, or that possibility is brought up, why she's like so like, I guess, like adverse to it. I don't think that's the right word, because it's a much more extreme reaction from her with that. But I think that she has kind of become disillusioned in the Phantom Scythe, because what is like really important to remember between Bella and Kieran is that Bella's loyalty to the Phantom Scythe in general, and especially the Apostle, is that it comes because she came from a very hopeless situation, and the Phantom Scythe empowered her through violence. And so we don't really know enough about Kieran to say whether that situation was the same, but for Bella, being taken out of that abusive environment, and while we don't really know how Bella perceived the circus or the PS as a younger child, the PS kind of saved her from that, and that was enough to get her loyalty, because she was a child, and there was a very simple like need. And it's kind of interesting to me, because I believe, or I kind of see it as Bella really got indoctrinated into the Phantom Scythe, maybe even more so than Kieran, because she has probably been in it for like double the time that Kieran's been in there, because we know that he's been there for at least 7 years. She's been in there for closer to 15. So yeah, Kieran was around maybe 14 to 17 when he got into the Phantom Scythe, most likely. Bella was 8, around 8 or 9. So I think, just growing up in that environment and just being so much younger than Kieran when she really got into the Phantom Scythe, it would have changed a lot of her perspectives on it.
I do think that there's one critical piece of information that we're forgetting a little bit, and that is that people don't leave the Phantom Scythe. That's something that's been established by Kieran. It's been reinforced by people like Sandman. Sandman is probably the only character that's successfully gotten away from the Phantom Scythe without getting killed, and even that's a questionable fact.
He's
a couple times over. So Bella's desire to stay with the Phantom Scythe is equal to Kieran's. It's a matter of you're kind of stuck. Now, Kieran has some other motivational developments within that, whether that's post joining the Phantom Scythe or that's the inspiring reason for continuing with the Phantom Scythe when you're abducted as a child. That's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is that this is the framework in which they have to operate, because they will die if they say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. They're going to get bumped themselves. So that is one thing where I don't think it's fair to Bella's character to say that her staying with the Phantom Scythe, and by extension the circus, because if Redcliff runs the circus and that's used partly as a front for his Phantom Scythe activities, then that is by extension part of the Phantom Scythe. I don't think it's necessarily fair to judge her moral compass by any act of continuing the operations of either the circus or the Phantom Scythe. I think it's kind of established that she has that the circus activities are more of a passion project, but I'm sure for her also it is partly contributing to the front that it is. And so I think her morality and her moral compass will be more defined as time moves forward. I definitely I think that it'll be more defined again in how you're saying, like how she responds to her relationships and dynamics. But again, another parallel is that her confidence and her all these useless murders, the murders of useless people, that kind of mirrors her own boss number two's attitude and overconfidence in things. Because it's a really good cover. It's a really good cover. If you don't want people to ask questions, you act like you're disinterested, or you just act like you love something if you don't want somebody to know that you hate it. And it'll kind of end the conversation in a lot of ways. If you notice, a lot of her conversational techniques, just like with Kieran when he puts on that mask and that disguise, and we know that he's talking for the purpose of gaining information. She has that too. We just haven't had enough scenes of her being chilled out, besides a handful of them. But even with Kieran, he's a coworker and he's a colleague. And even though they have a pact together, that doesn't mean they're required to be completely 100% honest with each other. And in fact, there are moments where it is confirmed that they're not being honest with each other and they're just transparent about that fact. So yes, she's tough to figure out. I personally don't take away from it that she's necessarily completely undefined. I think some of it has to do with context. And when you put the context together, her and Kieran are very similar because they do have similar positions and they do have similar fronts to maintain. And I don't know where I'm going anymore.
Absolutely. I just want to say absolutely. I agree to like all of that. Yeah, like that. You bring up an excellent point with sort of the blackmail that the Phantom Scythe has on everyone and how it's kind of impossible to leave. And I kind of just, because I was coming at it from like the perspective of like Bella, sort of like this is sort of what she knows because she's done this for so long, and which the really only time that she wasn't in the Phantom Scythe, because the circus is sort of an extension of the Phantom Scythe. The only really time that she wasn't with either of those two was when she was with her biological dad, and that was not a great situation for her. And so, that was like her only taste of like a life outside of the circus and Phantom Scythe, and it was a pretty bad and sour taste. And then I kind of think that Bella is sort of just desensitized to it all, because again, she's been doing this for so long, and I think she does realize that like the consequences of what happens to her if she does try to leave. But also I kind of think that that leaving isn't really one of her priorities right now, or it wasn't really one of her priorities, because she's kind of found a way to make her situation comfortable for herself, primarily through like making a lot of money off the situation. You know, she's like, I'm just going to kill everyone and get the money. Like, the money's my priority. And I think she was somewhat truthful in that. But I think Bella right now has sort of she's found a little niche within the Phantom Scythe that she's comfortable in. And she's just trying to go through that and that was kind of how I perceived Bella, as just trying to make her way through it all until Darcy comes up, and suddenly everything gets a lot more complicated. Because I think what Darcy kind of did is that she shook up Bella's perception of her situation, because I don't think Bella really acknowledged how sort of trapped she was. And then Darcy makes that comment about you out of like everyone should know what it's like to be trapped, and Bella has again a very like contemplative face during that scene, and she's definitely changed by episode 91 when we see her again. And then we have Kieran again being like, you don't really have as much control as you like to think, coming like with that attitude towards her. And so Bella is being confronted with a lot of people who are sort of challenging the perceptions that she had of her situation, and the comfort that she was trying to find within her own sort of life.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say that is kind of cool, thinking about how like what you just commented on about how, you know, beginning of the show, beginning of the series, you know, she was always the one to get a little bit of a rise out of Kieran, and now Kieran's always the one getting the rise out of her.
Yeah, this is ironic because it's the Loki panel, but I feel like the Bella Kieran dynamic is just consistently that one panel where Lauren has a knife to Kieran, or no, Lauren has a gun to Kieran, and Kieran has a knife to Lauren. And I think it's like episode 26, somewhere around there. It might be 25, but I always kind of find that a little funny, because it's like, you know, they have weapons to each other, but like, you know, they can't really, but they're still kind of stuck with each other, you know, just out of occupation and then history. But yeah, I think Bella's character arc has sort of been, she accepts her situation, right, with Redcliff and the Apostle, and she was just, and that's why she was like so much more confident in Kieran, because she just fully committed to it, you know. But then as figures from her past, like Darcy, come back, and you know, Kieran, who's sort of been on this assassin journey with her and is definitely a lot farther ahead, and they're like, yeah, I'm not really the biggest Phantom Scythe supporter, you know. Those people, like, they come together and they're challenging Bella's position, and I really like seeing it challenged, because as Bella starts questioning more things, we see in episodes like these, in her dynamic with Redcliff, that like she's being a lot more cautious than she was before because of her like encounter with Kieran. And so that cautiousness is definitely going to culminate into something a lot more serious in how she perceives Redcliff / Apostle 7.
Yeah, I love everything that you guys both said. And Fwoot, I also really love what you said about how her background and her experiences influence like how she perceives her situation. And yeah, I totally agree. She's going through an awakening now. I do have a point to say about how I think that she does differ from Kieran in her natural personality, which we're going to see in her childhood, you know, recollection that we have now. So anyway, Redcliff gets up, and, you know, in response to her finally admitting like, okay, maybe this is not what I want, he gets up and there's a doom, you know, statement, and we see his hands are bruised also. And he walks over to her, the angle that we see, just the feet coming, it's very menacing. It's just, you know, great that we see that, like, he's coming towards her. It's a menacing approach. And he says, but no one's got quite the same talent as you do, dearie. And we see him, like, just the back of him coming closer to Bella. Bella for once looks like a little hunched over and a little cautious. She's looking to the side. She looks unhappy. She looks a little, you know, what's the word, like uncomfortable, or she also looks like she's kind of ignoring him, right? And she's like in her own world, like lost in her own thoughts. And she pulls out the dagger, right? Her famous golden viper dagger, and she sees herself reflected in it, right? So this is, quite literally a moment of reflection. And she now has a flashback to when she first got that dagger. And we see a pair of hands. First of all, does anyone have any speculation on whose hands they are?
I'm pretty sure they're Redcliff's. I really hope they're Redcliff's because I've been speculating for like a really long time now, like ever since we got that little nugget that it's like the venom is like super expensive, to use. I've always thought that it was like Redcliff who gave her the knife because he would have been able to afford it and to give her use and access to the venom because he would have had the money to. And so I really hope that those are Redcliff's hands, but I shouldn't say everyone, but like so many people in this comic are like hella pale, so who knows really. But I think it definitely I think the scene kind of implies it because, his position to her right now, it's the same position that the person who's giving her the knife would have been in. Because we see that Bella was super young when she got the knife. It was probably Redcliff because that would have been one of the key adult figures in her life following her joining the circus. And I also just think that there's some narrative irony if one father figure, like her new father figure, gave her the knife and she used that knife to kill her old father figure. And because I personally believe that Bella will be the one killing Redcliff, so I need that to also come full circle and for her to use the knife that she gave him to kill him. It would be the perfect way for like everything to come back onto him, and he gets what he deserves.
Yes, that's very dramatic. But yeah, the whole scene is set up visually, like very poetically, because like the mirror is a literal reflection. She, is contemplating her life now. She's contemplating how she got here and like whether she wants to continue this. But the thing that I want to point out about this, so she gets the knife and we see like little child Bella, she's like, oh, like she first looks like shocked and then she, kind of touches the snake's arm, the snake's mouth, and she is just like, looks pleased as punch. She has like this sadistic little smile on her face. And I have to say, like, that to me shows that inherently Bella is a different personality than someone like Kieran. Like Kieran has always been someone who, regrets his need to kill people. We saw like presumably his first kill, the Chandelier Man. He was so hesitant. He was so agonized. He still is so agonized about his every day. He looks at his arms and is there, they're red. He thinks of himself as a murderer. Like he just cannot live with himself. Whereas Bella, I think she just always had a little bit of this sadistical side. And I do think a lot of it, like we'll see, comes from the need for power because she was so powerless as a child. But I think that there's, everyone will react differently to situations of, let's say, abuse, like based on their personality. So Bella's personality is like, I'm going to now have power, I'm going to take control, and maybe even go too far in the other direction, like of not caring about people because, no one cared about me, so I'm not going to care about them.
Interesting perspective. Yeah. I actually disagree with the Kieran concept that he regrets all his murders, because that actually directly flies in the face of all the character development and growth that he's done recently. It wouldn't be nearly as much impact if we just wrote all of his murders off as something that he always regretted. The main episode that really kind of solidifies this dual dynamic within himself and what makes him a complex character is that he doesn't regret all of his murders. He does have a code that he lives by, but he still does them, and he still takes pride in the fact that he's really good at his work. The monster episode of when she calls him a monster, before he gets to the "and I have always been this way," which is a lie, everything else he said before that was true. I kill without hesitation, going on and on about that. So in that way, and I say that partly also to support the concept that, Bella might not be as heartless as she puts on. Because if Kieran can be both things at the same time, not enjoying it in some contexts, and definitely not being not okay with it in a lot of other contexts, she may also be the same way. And I think definitely sometimes her hesitation to people like Redcliff, her you know, very austere moments with Kieran, you know, those are the moments where we see that. Those are her monster moments where she's telling us visually that no, she hasn't always been this way. And I kind of like that they have these flashbacks in this episode of going back to the beginning, because she's remembering it wasn't always quite like this. And just like you said, how did I get here?
Yeah, you know, I actually I think that the wording that Kieran used in 43 was very, very, very deliberate. And it was set up to lead Lauren to think that he doesn't care, but he really does. So like the fact that he kills without hesitation is because he knows, like, I got to do this. So he does it. I think I very strongly believe that he always has been regretting it and he never wanted to do it, but he just had to. And like, in order to achieve his end goal of like taking down the leader. So I think that if you look back at 43, like, I think he was very carefully choosing his words so that they would not come across as lies, but without revealing too much about his emotional state.
Okay.
And also,
okay,
he believes that about himself, it comes out as true, right? If he believes he's a monster, then, you know, that's how Lauren hears it.
I have some interesting thoughts on that. Okay, first I'm going to address Kieran and then I'm going to address Bella. But with Kieran, I think I kind of agree with Veronica. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to make sure because I was like, for a second, I like my heart dropped. I was like, wait.
It's okay.
But yeah, I kind of agree with Veronica that like I don't really feel like the way that a lot of people perceive Kieran as complicated is kind of the reason that he is actually complicated, and how like he regrets so many of his murders. I do think he regrets a lot, but I do sort of enjoy the idea that he might not be fully regretful, and that's because of how in episode 115 Bella points out the agency that both Kieran and Bella have in their murders. And she points out that how, like, you know, we're not doing this because we're forced to. We're doing this because we choose to, and we choose to endure in this reality, and we choose to endure in this line of work. And even though like the way we leave is death, you know, we choose to stick around for a reason, and you continue to kill because you have a reason and you have a motivation to kill. And it kind of, in that line, sort of calls into question, I think, you know, how much can you regret, right? Because I think Kieran still, I kind of agree with Mindy in how I think Kieran does regret a lot of his murders, but I sort of agree with Veronica in how he is the reason that he has to regret, almost because he stays, you know, he stays in the Phantom Scythe. And because his motivation calls him to, which is probably that revenge quest for the Protectee. So because he stays, he murders, and because he murders, he regrets. And that is sort of all caused because he's staying, because of his ulterior motivations. And then with Bella, like, this is going to sound really weird, and maybe I just sympathize with her too much, but when Bella like smiles after getting the knife, it's kind of weird because I didn't really interpret it as sadistic. Like I almost thought it was kind of wholesome. And I know that's almost sadistic in its own line, but it was kind of like, because I kind of saw it as like Bella said, and again in episode 115, I really like episode 115 if it's not obvious, but Bella said that the apostle made her powerful. And that could also be sort of another piece of evidence for is the apostle who gave her that knife. But it's sort of like I think that Bella sees power as violence, because her biological father, he would be violent towards her, right? As we see, he was drunk and angry all the time, and but he was powerful, and Bella recognized that powerful, and that's why she was, you know, terrified and abused as a child. And then we go to Redcliff, who Bella also probably sees as a very powerful figure, and while he himself isn't necessarily the one who inflicts violence, he's the one who threatens violence. As we see, he threatens violence with Neyra, and he gets other people to do the violence for him, as he gets Bella to do the murders. And then we have Bella just in general working with the Phantom Scythe, and she works for the leader who organized one of the most violent, or who organized the most violent tragedy in Artalis in like recent memory, and one of the catalyst events for like the entire story, that being the Allendale train station tragedy. And so all of these powerful figures in Bella's life, they're all powerful because they inflict violence. And so I think Bella has that association between power and violence. And so when she considers herself powerful, it's because she considers herself violent. And unlike Kieran, I think Kieran, again, it's sort of humanity. He finds power in humanity, and he is empowered by seeing humanity and acts of humanity, and that's why he draws humanity. And you know, Kieran was in episode 54, Kieran is 16 in that flashback scene. And so, you know, around that time, he was definitely a lot older, and, you know, he's able to make these judgments about what he finds fulfilling. But for Bella, you know, kind of like her entire life, she grew up in a situation where the only way to survive was really to be violent. And so I think that's why Bella finds so much joy as a young child in the knife, because, you know, she's still pretty young in that. So it was probably very recently after she was taken in by the circus. But, you know, in this scene, she's given the tools to be powerful herself. She's given the tools to be violent, but to Bella, to be violent, again, means to be powerful. And so she's finally given her own agency. She's finally given like her own power sort of in that scene. And that's why she smiles, because she's finally being empowered herself.
I actually have a completely different interpretation for both of those with that scene. For me, that scene read as just the pure classic kid got a brand new bike scene.
Yeah.
For her age. Well, seriously though, I mean, I tell you, like my kids every day, you know, you give them something brand new and shiny, and they all have that exact same facial expression. It could be a pencil, a basic pencil, but if it's a shiny pencil and you're giving it to them, oh my goodness. You put sparkles on a piece of paper, oh yeah. You hand them watercolors, oh yeah. Yeah, that same face and smile. And the other reason that helps me to contribute to this, the other thing that contributes to this interpretation that I have is later in the scene where we do see her stabbing somebody with it. She's not a child. She's a fully formed adult in that scene. So eventually I do think she found agency and power in being able to learn how to use it. But I see more of what we're going to still assume is Redcliff handing her the dagger and her taking it. That's one of the first. Consider the act of, you know, coming from a broken home. She's the only scene that we have as evidence for this is we see a father casting her out into the snow, expecting her to get things to give to him. This is the first time that someone has given something to her, and it's shiny and it's new and it's golden. What a majestic gift. This person must really care. So those feelings of joy and, you know, in that way, my interpretation was more the pure and somewhat innocent joy as a child. I don't think there's necessarily a connection with power and violence yet, because even though, you know, even though kids do sometimes, some children do kind of use violence as a way of getting control or attention from a situation. That's not something that they interpret necessarily from others all the time. But nevertheless, it's interesting how that one scene can manifest so many different interpretations. We need more answers in the future.
Yeah, but I think, you know, I don't know if there's ever a clear-cut answer. I think that's the beauty of having different personalities and different brains approaching the same subject matter. And this is why I love having co-hosts, because I think that so many people just contribute a fuller picture.
And also it's the beauty of art being able to convey more things than once, and the beauty of this medium that you can go and refer back to and see something different every time.
Yeah, I really like that interpretation, because I do think that it is on the more wholesome side, despite it being like a knife.
Poison is super dagger.
Yeah, I think kind of like what you said about like, yeah, he's giving me a gift, he must really care for me. How I kind of connect that to how I was seeing it as, again, that line of like, oh, a possible 7 made me powerful, sort of like. And so Bella, like that sort of loyalty initially, because we do know that Bella was very loyal to Redcliff, at least early on, and that sort of loyalty kind of stems from like, yeah, he I think it's sort of like he gave her the means to sort of protect herself,
free herself from that which oppressed her, and to free herself from that which overpowered.
It's not just like he gave her material gifts, but also that he gave her a means by which she could sort of like regain her own agency. And as we see, like she does that by killing her dad, even though it's years later. Yeah.
Potato.
Thing, whatever, Yeah, I love your interpretations, and I love how there's so many facets to this character, and I love how you point out all of them.
Yeah, so as we see in this flashback, we see teenage Bella coming in. Her dad is drunk on the couch. She leans, kneels before him, says, "Finally, I can give you what you deserve," which is a great line, very sarcastic. Picks up the dagger. Now, we don't actually see her kill him, by the way. So a part of me wonders if like she didn't actually do it.
Wait, okay, I actually never thought about that.
I want to see the end of that scene now. Interesting.
Okay.
I mean, very likely he died of his alcoholism himself, but maybe he'll come up again.
Dang, I didn't think about that. Oh, okay, that'd be really interesting, because Bella says that I've grown tired of killing all these useless people, and so all these people are sort of meaningless to her. But this is like the one time where we would actually see her, I guess, like about to enact violence on someone who does mean a lot to her. And although it's not a good connection, it's not a good relationship, and the reason that he's important to her is not for good reasons. There is still some emotional significance, as they are like, Bella did know him personally and he hurt her a lot, but he's also like family,
right?
Blood family, at least. And honestly, ditch the biological relations. I need Bella to find found family with the rest of the main cast,
Well, in that wonderful family promo photo we got for the season, I think that'll be forthcoming.
Well, yeah, I'm curious what's forthcoming, but let's finish up this scene, and then I do want to speculate what she's going to do. So she is basically thinking out loud. Like I think she's being very honest. She is looking at herself in the mirror. She's reflecting on herself, right? And she says, and he says, sorry, you did everything, every single thing I ever asked with vigor, steal, spy, and even kill when I needed you to. And Bella says, you gave me everything that I had. Which is, again, it does show something about the nature of the relationship, that she's able to be so honest. I feel like the relationship is like a close but toxic one. Like it has the good and the bad, and like a little bit of like enmeshment and like unhealthy boundaries and like expectations of like, you'll just do whatever I say. It's just like reeks of something unhealthy, like too enmeshed. I don't know. And he says something that you should never forget. There we go, right? Lifts up her chin, very manipulative. Like a true parent or someone, right? If you love someone, you let them go, right? And if they're yours, they'll come back to you. Like, this is not healthy a relationship.
Don't
like
go back. Don't go back. We're good. You're good. You're good without it. You're good without him, girl.
Right? He wants to control her.
It kind of like, it just reinforces that sort of idea that like, Bella's loyalty to him does come from like, how he was the one who kind of pulled her out of her situation. And although Bella does say that like, she doesn't care for him anymore, but I think it's very clear that those like remnants of, you know, his abuse and his sort of manipulation on her still remain. And I think like she is trying to distance herself. I think she is trying to distance herself from him, but you know, I don't think she's immune to that manipulation.
I'm kind of guessing. I think Redcliff might have started off as more benevolent than he is now, because the fact that he joined the Phantom Scythe, the fact that he, you know, did so many things for the poor, I feel like he probably started out with better intentions and over time developed into being more selfish and more self-centered and more power hungry and more manipulative. It's possible that he started out better than he is now. I'm curious if we'll see that, or, you know, or if he'll just always have been a little slimy. But I feel like he is a little bit of a mixed bag. Like I feel like he displays to me more toxicity rather than like outright abuse. Like, I don't know if he's even so self-aware.
I feel like I have a similar interpretation to you, Mindy, of this scene in particular, like of him as a character in particular. An abuser is an abuser is an abuser. I don't think someone who takes in children who are abandoned or being abused, hands them a weapon and say, hey, go kill people for me, is someone who is well-intentioned from the start. That person is never well-intentioned, because that's grooming, and it's intentional and it is abusive and manipulative. But I also, you know, my takeaway from that scene is, honestly, it read as very incestuous. Very much again of that grooming, that you know, hoping to mold someone into your own personal servant for the rest of your life. In this scene, based on her facial expression and the way she behaves, I don't think for a second that she means what she says and actually takes that to heart. I think she's saying that to placate him, to get him to shut up, because she knows that that's what he wants to hear. And I think to some degree she also says it having some understanding of the way that he sees himself, and the fact that, you know, at the moment he does have some kind of place in her life, and that, you know, if she still works for him, and for the moment she has to still maintain that tie, partly because of what the leader has asked her to do, and you don't disagree with the leader, and also partly to protect her own interests of protecting the people she cares about, i.e. the one person she cares about, and also, you know, just making enough money so that eventually she can bounce. So it's kind of a double meaning in that. But yeah, I think in this moment, definitely we get to see the icky dynamic of grooming young children for your own personal terrible interest.
Yeah. Something that like I kind of speculate about, and we were kind of talking about this like earlier influences sort of, but you know, every time that we see Bella around Redcliff, it's like exponentially clear how toxic that relationship is, right? And how there are like so many expectations for that, you know, and how he's like, you know, you used to do everything I asked you to, right? And then you kind of compare it to like Bella's other main relationship, that being with Darcy, and you can just like, we've only had one scene of them together, but it's what kind of strikes out to me is that like it's very clear in the differences, because similarly to how Redcliff also asks Bella for like, or he needs Bella to do stuff for him, Darcy also asks Bella for her help, but she doesn't really like insist upon it, and like in that scene, and she doesn't make any threats about it, you know. And so when Bella leaves, she doesn't follow after Bella. She gives Bella that space, and then she comes back later after some time has passed to give a note, and she doesn't even approach her in person because Bella's very uncomfortable with that. And so even if like, and Bella does like throw away the note, but it's just kind of interesting to me how like, you know, Darcy is definitely a much healthier relationship than Bella's with Redcliff, and I think exposure to that healthy relationship has definitely like played a much more impactful role in Bella's perception of Redcliff.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, not that I feel like Neyra and Bella also have some unhealthy dynamics going on, but definitely like it doesn't seem like it's toxic and grooming, like you said, Veronica, which I think is actually the perfect way to describe this Redcliff's relationship with Bella. Like, and I think Bella is undergoing the process of like de-enmeshing herself right now.
Yeah.
So she asks him, you can mesh yourself and to align yourself with the one person more powerful than your abuser.
Yeah, interesting. So she doesn't respond, and she asks him, why did you call me here today? And he turns away, and just once again we see his beautiful flourishing of his overcoat, waistcoat, whatever. And he says, other than for the pleasure of your company, which is his, him being charming, I will need you tomorrow. I will attend the premiere of a new play, a charitable event for fundraising that many nobles will attend. And many people in the cast will attend. Considering the recent new measures, I mean, not this the opera cast, I mean like our cast. Considering the recent new measures, there will be increased security all around the theater, but there's no one I trust more for you than this, my sweet Viper. And he's holding the Mirage Opera House blueprint, and there's a newspaper. So he gives it to her. He says, the blueprints of the Mirage Opera House, be ready for 7. And she says, understood. And just my question is, like, he doesn't ever tell her what the mission is. Like, is that going to happen at some point? Or is he like the kind of guy to be like, okay, nice to see you here. Now in 5 minutes, you will go kill this person.
I think it was more for, I interpreted that scene as security. Because let's face it, she's not just an assassin. She's also a spy. She was spying. She was doing the spy thing. You gotta be a spy too to be able to effectively be an assassin. So I think this is just one of those Ford theater scenarios where he's trying not to be the one that gets assassinated that evening, and just wants some extra security detail and somebody to look out, and also potentially hear some juicy information. If somebody needs to die, okay, may as well have the best assassin I know, just in case.
Yeah, I was thinking that like it's kind of interesting how he's giving her the blueprints, so it kind of seems like she is going to break in instead of going in like through the front door or whatever, getting tickets. So I kind of think that it's probably because Bella's going to be armed. So yeah, like probably he's worried about like he's probably worried that like, he might be attacking people, or like just again it's like for security. But yeah, I think Bella's gonna like probably just drop in the assassin way and like go through the vents or something. But I'm really hoping for a Bella opera outfit for personal reasons. I just, Bella in formal wear, I need it.
That would be luscious. Yeah, and you're gonna see Neyra in formal wear too.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Let's list who is gonna be at this event.
Bellarcy.
Exactly.
That's funny. So there's like, this event is gonna be really cool because there's so many people there. So we know like the Queen is sending Darcy. I think Will and Kim are doing security, right? And then there's Sandman and Mrs. Green, like they're gonna do something there. Like everything is gonna converge at this opera, and like I was so excited.
Wait, sorry, did you say Lauren and Kim or Will and Kim? Because I'm not sure. Okay, because I'm not sure what Will's up to. Like he might be doing security detail, but then I also saw some speculation that he's going to be on a date with Darcy, because a while back Soph shared some screenshots of Will and Darcy, and I thought that they were on a date because they had like matching hats, but I don't know if you would need a hat to go to an opera, it's like one of those top hats.
Door.
Oh, true. Because initially, like I thought that like maybe it's just like they were going to dinner, because I saw those screenshots and I saw like that one of Kim, and I was like, oh my god, imagine like Darcy and Will are on a date and then Kim sees them, but like I didn't really add any specific location. I just thought like maybe they're walking around, but then some people were like, hey, maybe it was like they're at the opera, and I'm like, oh my god, because Kira's gonna be on security detail, so they're gonna be like in the same place and Kim's gonna be working there.
That is cool. Yeah, that I like that drama, but like whatever it is, there's definitely going to be drama and action, I think.
Yeah, I want to get into that after the king and queen scene, because one of my comments was about that on the episode.
Sorry.
So now she steps away and starts leaving and headed towards the secret doorway, and he's like, another thing. She stops. He says, don't forget your mission. The fourth wants your report on the purple hyacinth soon. And she says, of course. Opens the door and leaves. So betray Kieran.
True. I knew it's too good to be true.
Okay, hear me out. I think Bella's just gonna give like a bullshit report, you know? Kind of like what Kieran would do as an archivist, how he just like does minor details, you know? Because I kind of like, it's kind of implied that Bella sort of suspects him to be the purple, not to be the purple, to be Loon. And I think just because Bella knows Kieran, and they have sort of that relationship going on, and she doesn't want Kieran to be gone. I think she says that in like episode 115, like, because then she'll be left alone and she'll be so bored with all the new people. But it's kind of like, you know, she doesn't want him to leave her, sort of. And so she kind of has her own incentive to keep him around. So I think she will be sort of just like neutral in the report. But I think also because she wants to see for herself where this Loon thing's going to go, and how, like, that's less baseless speculation, but more just, I think, my interpretation of what Bella would want to see.
Are you suggesting that, are you saying that from your interpretation that you think it's possible for Bella to form a Loon alliance, a balloon, if you will?
I think she could like join. I think she would join Loon later on if she saw that it would fit her own purposes, but mainly that kind of like, I think she's intrigued more by Kieran right now and what Kieran's been up to, because she's like, she points out in episode 115 how she's sort of curious about why Kieran is still in the Phantom Scythe, because the reason that she perceived Kieran to remain in the Phantom Scythe has been long gone, and so the man intrigues her, and she wants to and so by keeping him around she can observe him more, and I think just because Bella's that kind of person, I think she also finds his Loon shenanigans amusing.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to a report filled with the purple hyacinth has a very lovely days. He spends his days painting in his room and reading books. I have nothing to report.
That is very interesting, and I hope, I'll be honest, when they do that report, I actually am partly hoping that she'll say, you know, this is what I got on him, but honestly, he's so hard to trace, because that is one thing, like, you set up overpowered characters, and after that, you're kind of compelled to deliver. So the fact that he's been able to get away relatively unscathed while scaling the walls of Lauren's house, etc., you know, I really want there to be some conveyance to me that there is some truth to him being the most fearsome person, and I just want that to still be reinforced, because for me, some of the things moving forward aren't going to make as much sense, and this was some of the things that there are certain plot points with Lauren that I'm kind of like, ooh, I'm glad they were able to circle it back around and make it work, because I don't want that. I really want Kieran's fearsomeness to stay believable throughout all of this, because moving forward, he's going to need a lot of he's going to need all those Hyacinth skills to make getting out of scenarios, which hopefully they do, believable as well. So his disappearing act still needs to work, especially since they need to stay undercover as Loon. So I'm hoping that genuinely there is some like, gosh darn it, I tried to follow him Tuesday, but then, you know, he disguised himself as a coat rack and I was lost. Something like that. Like I need some of those moments so that also the leader is still afraid enough of him or is still respectful enough of him that he'll keep him around and won't beat him up as much because he's useless to us, bloody and broken.
I do kind of worry, not really worried, but I do kind of wonder if Bella's going to follow up on her telling Messenger 4 about Lauren and how Sake got involved with Lauren. In episode 52, she told the Messenger, and I wonder, like, she hasn't seen the Messenger since, I believe, but she does know that Kieran has been trailing along Lauren, right? And he claims that he's with her to get more information, you know, because she's a police officer. So I wonder if Bella's gonna report that when I think it's kind of clear that Bella suspects there's a lot more to that relationship. And what I sort of wonder because of that is that if Bella knows what happens to relationships in the Phantom Scythe, right, and she is currently like being inflicted that blackmail, I wonder if she would have the guts to be the reason that that same blackmail is once again inflicted on Kieran when she knows what has already happened in Kieran's past.
Right. I guess that's the little bit of honor that she has. I would expect her, like, I don't expect her to feel bad for the people she murders, but I do expect her to relate to that.
Yeah. So I really hope, and also I don't think she would report that because I think, again, she would sort of understand the position that Kieran's in because, again, her relationship to Darcy, and I think that would be like sort of a common ground for her. Like, yeah, like it would benefit me a lot to report you on this because I want to be the #1 assassin and I want that position that you have, but I also understand what it's like, so I'm not going to. Because
also she probably understands what's going to happen to her if he finds out that she was the one to snitch about Lauren.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody would want what's coming next.
Yeah, he could snitch on Darcy, so mutual interest to not snitch on each other.
Mutually assured destruction.
Right. Yeah. All right. So thinking of destruction, and we go to the castle, and we have, I was very surprised, we have the king and the queen in their bedchamber, and the king is wearing the goofiest, nerdiest, kingliest nightdress. It is really cute.
He looks great. I love his little slippers.
I know, right? They have a beautiful bedroom. I have to say, like, I want to read in my bedroom now, and I'm like, I really like this. Yeah, and it took me a while to recognize Elizabeth because she just looks different. She looks more, I mean, she looks less condescending and nasty, just even in her look. You know? She's not like doing the whole eyebrow thing, whatever.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Like the high eyebrow and the...
You did that so well. Oh, I see it. Oh, you got to do a Queen Elizabeth cosplay now.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't mind. I could play her. Yeah, if I had to choose a character. So she is at the dressing table, like brushing her hair, and she says, "Dawkins' idea is preposterous. How can we stoop so low?" And that's the idea of negotiating with, you know, terrorists. And she says, "Your father will be rolling over in his grave." And King Philip is looking very contemplative. He's like, "My father is the reason this whole thing even started, Elizabeth. The Phoenix, right? They won't back down no matter what we do." And then Queen Elizabeth says the very Queen Elizabeth statement, she's like, "Why don't we get rid of them once and for all? Attack them in their underworld. Give them a blow they wouldn't be able to recover from." And then the king is like, getting up. "We've known for a while they found a way to infiltrate the ancient ruins of the city and made them their headquarters. Maybe that's also where they're hiding their explosives, and we kill 2 birds with 1 stone." Okay, ancient ruins. I didn't know there were ancient ruins in Narhalis, but cool.
Sorry. It kind of just reminds me that I'm pretty sure that F. Mary's, the writer, has said in the past that Ardhalis is based off London, which is kind of clear in its sort of geography and layout, but also it's based off Paris. And so that's kind of reminded me, like, you know, the Paris catacombs.
The French catacombs, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and King Philip says, we've talked about this already. It's mostly pointless and dangerous to attack them there. Even more so if they're hiding explosives. The access to those catacombs was shut off since the war over 5 centuries ago. Some parts were destroyed, others were sealed and used as foundations when the city was rebuilt. We don't know what the Phantom Scythe has done with it since. Not only is it uncharted territory for us, but a violent confrontation there could make anything above it collapse. So, King Philip, I have to say, like, this whole episode just shows me, we didn't know too much about him. He was a little bit neutral, but now, like, he does care about the people. Like, he doesn't want his people and his city, to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this line especially, like, I was kind of surprised by that because a long time ago, a really long time ago, like, I'm pretty sure like fall of 2020, there was a theory that this was kind of like, I think when the tunnel theory was really just coming into its formation around that time. And as you know, the tunnel theory was true. It was canon. And around that time, people were like, hey, what if, the climax of the story is the tunnels get flooded, like the PS floods the tunnels. And so that weakens like the foundation of the city and then everything just collapses on it,
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and that's what this kind of reminded me of, because I feel like explosions all around the city, that would be kind of a lot. And I don't know if the Phantom Scythe could pull that off, but I feel like you could definitely flood the city a lot more easily, especially if they have it like mapped out, they know that goes deeper, because Artalis is right on water, like river goes through it, and then it literally has an ocean coast.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think I've talked about this in the episode 42. I don't remember, the one where I talk about it was 38, where I talk about the books that Kieran, that Lauren takes out in Kieran's apartment, and one of them is the Batman book where the Joker is planning on using the city's tunnels to administer poison to everyone, just poison the water system, and kill everyone. So yeah, so I am totally on board with that.
It's also kind of funny. I was thinking about that because I was thinking about like, Catacombs, Paris, Victor Hugo, and I was thinking about that. And I was kind of, and then Batman. Spoilers for the most recent Batman movie. But in that movie, the city also gets flooded. So I was like, okay, River Hyacinth definitely was inspired off that movie because it came way too late. But
well, maybe they helped write the Batman movie.
Yeah. I just, I think when they were writing Purple Hyacinth back in like 2018, 2019, I think that they were actually inspired by the 2022 Batman movie. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but
time travel is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just scroll down the credits and see like their names tagged in it. Contributors.
Yep.
So FNAF.
Mm-hmm.
So now Elizabeth is, it's so funny because I love, like, what she says is very much like, I feel like people have this interaction a lot where they like really want something to happen and they like haven't thought about it practically. So she's like, we wouldn't do it without careful preparation, obviously. We can send in more spies, have them map out the underworld and prepare our soldiers accordingly. So this is like this is the voice of an optimist, right? So someone who's like, no, we can get it done. We can get it done. I'm a little bit like that.
Optimist.
What?
I wouldn't drag Optimist down with her stubborness.
Okay, just in the approach. Okay, fine. Optimism. I've learned to equate optimism with risk taking, and like it's a certain way of like approaching life where you're like, no, it'll just work out. We can do it. And Philip is much more of a realist, and he's like, no, they've had years to set up their defenses. All the hounds we've sent there were either killed or barely made it back. So interesting, they use hounds to try to spy. And don't forget that they've got more spies in our ranks than we do in theirs. They might know what we're trying to do before we even formulate a proper plan. So yeah, Philip he knows his stuff. He's not like gonna just jump into this.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how Elizabeth kind of jumps straight to like the violence, like she's like, sorry, she's like, we'll just go straight in, jump right into the midst of battle. And again, as Mindy were saying, that Philip was like, no, we can't do that because it's not realistic. And it's just kind of like an interesting dichotomy between her and Dakin, because Elizabeth, she immediately chooses like the physical action, whereas Dakin chooses negotiation.
Yeah, she's a violent person. And Yeah, so much so she literally just slams this bottle down, and she's like, no, her brush, sorry. And she's like, don't you think we've let that vermin populate in our city long enough? Even if half the city collapses, we should wipe out the criminals once and for all. Like,
yeah, she makes it very clear what she's willing to give up in order to get rid of the Phantom Scythe.
Wow, that's crazy. Crazy lady in the house.
we honestly need a character like her in this midst, though, because she serves a very important role of being the other extreme of the Phantom Scythe of, you know, win at any cost. And at the end, it's gonna, no matter who wins, it's gonna be an analysis for every major character in there, for every character in there of, okay, this is what we got. What did it cost us? Was it really worth the cost? And it's interesting to see the comparisons between a lot of the Phantom Scythe characters and just the whole operation and premise of the Phantom Scythe. Like, oh, we're just going to murder everybody until we get all the peace and love and happiness we want. And somehow that's going to happen. And likewise with her, I'm just going to murder everybody and somehow that's going to manage to make me feel safer. It's not. You know, she's never going to feel safe. You know, and truthfully, by virtue of her position, there's always some, like you're saying, Mindy, some elemental risk. But you know, yeah. In this case, it's interesting that Bella's pointing out fighting fire with fire. Well, look at Lisbeth; she's trying to fight fire with fire as well. And ultimately, Phantom Scythe is playing the whole game of fighting fire with fire, sort of. So, yeah. Here, let's lose the very thing that our jobs are for,
right?
You know,
thank God she's not in power.
You know, giving queens a bad name. All right, yeah, giving queens a bad name out here. Stop it, Lisbeth.
But yeah, after this chapter, massive respect for Philip. Like, he was kind of growing on me because like. I kind of like before this season, I kind of saw him as like, you know, he's kind of pointless puppet leader. You know, Dakian and Lisbeth are the ones who are actually ruling. But no, in this chapter, he really like, he kind of edged it a little bit before. But in this episode, like, he really puts his foot down on Lisbeth. And I'm like, go King.
Mm-hmm. Yes. He becomes an actual character. It's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm proud of him. You know, and it's interesting because I thought that Lisbeth would gaslight him this whole time. So, but the way she talks to him, she's not manipulative. She's very direct. She's, you know, she is treating him like a person. Like in other episodes, I feel like she was a little more not like gaslighty. And I thought she would be doing that here, but she is treating him with the respect, like I'm talking to a person and I'm trying to convince you. And like, I'm just being honest about my opinions, right? Which are like crazy, but like, I'm just telling you like it is. And I appreciated that. And the fact that later on in the episode, she's able to even make a concession to him is like their relationship is doing much better than I thought it was.
I know, right?
It's kind of weird when one of the healthiest relationships in this comic is between the corrupt queen and then the kind of corrupt king. Yeah.
I think by virtue of their privilege, they are both demonstratively out of touch. You can see that in some of the ways they phrase things and some of their reactions.
Yeah.
Right.
But I totally co-sign with you, Mindy, about how like you have a completely different perspective of him after this episode that, you know, okay, when he does tell Dakan something that, you know, he does really actually mean that, you know, he's being political, not just for the sake of policy, but also for the sake of, you know, trying to figure out what's going to work best, you know? Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, and he, you know, protests against what she said. And she's like I said, it's pointless. Elizabeth. He stands up. And again, we see this beautiful nightgown. We're saying it's like very elegant. And yeah, I don't know. You know, I never thought I would want to see the king in a white nightdress, but I am happy I did. The sleeves are beautiful. Like the cuff sleeves, gorgeous.
Nothing but best.
Yeah, so he's like, destroying their hideout will not erase them all. It may be their headquarters, but it's not strong. It's not storing all their people or supplies. Even if we kill them, their ideas and claim will remain. So the fact that I think he's just saying, the fact that he says claims, that's giving them legitimacy. Like he recognizes that their claims are legit, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And he says they've started gaining the sympathy of our people despite scaring them. Docket is right in that regard. And she looks back at him and she's like, petulant child. And, you know, like she knows he's right and she doesn't want to admit it, but she does. She's like, that's one thing we do need to consider, I suppose, which again, credit to her. Like she may be a psychopathic, maniac, violent lady, but like she is able to admit, yeah, you know, you're right. And he continues, he says, trying to silence them and destroying their underworld is not going to put an end to it. Rather, it might drive our people to insurrection. So like, yes, thank you. My father was able to get rid of the Snapdragon because they were much less numerous and influential. We cannot do the same thing with the Phantom Scythe this time. So I guess he doesn't know that the Phantom Scythe is an outgrowth of the Snapdragon. That's the impression I'm getting.
But I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, I wonder if he condemns his father for what he did with Snapdragon, because that was sort of like what Lisbeth has been going for. And Lisbeth is sort of more of a predecessor to Edward than Philip is to Edward. Because Lisbeth was like, yeah, we'll just like infiltrate them, you know, we'll get rid of them through like infiltrating their bases. And that's kind of what the Secret Service did under Edward with Snapdragon, is they massacred them in the printer shop. And so like I wonder, like, would Philip choose that option if it were a viable one? Because here he's like, we can't do that because, you know, the Phantom Scythe is more numerous.
I don't think he would do it.
Yeah, because
I think he's just explaining things to her.
Yeah,
like how it's not going to be a good idea.
I kind of like, I just wonder where he would side, or like what his opinions would be if, you know, the PS were a group more like Snapdragon. Because at this point, the Phantom Scythe has festered for so long that they're just ingrained within the city. And so Lisbeth, the old solutions on how the royals dealt with such groups, although they were peaceful groups at that time, was a lot more direct and violent. And it's kind of weird how they, or I guess it's kind of ironic how they used the violence against the peaceful groups, but now they're in a situation where they have to use more peaceful means against a violent group. And I still support peace over violence. I'm not really. Yeah.
There's this quote that I can't remember, a very famous quote, that, you know, when you something like when you cut off all options to solve a problem peacefully, you force a problem to solve itself violently, or something like that. And you know, this is one of those moments where I never noticed that, Fwoot, and I think that's so stinking true. Though they did use violence to end the peaceful groups. Well, no wonder, you know, Phantom Scythe is just second generation Snapdragon, because you take one look at that and like, all right, I did it the peaceful way, you're killing me, I'm gonna make you stop that, and I'm gonna kill you instead, because now I'm scared. It's like, there we go, and here we are in a cycle.
Because it is kind of true. Like the socialist groups, they started off peaceful, you know, they didn't harm anyone. They were championing what a lot of people would consider human rights. So like that being like access to healthcare, that being access to education, and that being access to, like, you know, a sturdy living place. And the monarchy took that as a threat, and so they responded violently. And because, as you're saying, because they responded violently, the Snapdragon was pushed to violence, and now the monarchy is dealing with the repercussions of their own violence.
Yep.
And I like that this is being illustrated to us now as well, because it makes the comments in that meeting with the apostles and the leader make a little bit more sense. Because at first I was kind of like, this sounds really corny and like a little bit of a time jump here. I feel like I missed something. Now catching up with this as a reader, I don't feel like I've missed as much.
Yeah. So now we get to the crux of the issue. Elizabeth looks away and she's like, so you want to cooperate with them? And he says, I'm starting to consider it. Yes. They've become too unpredictable. Is this panel? No. Who knows what they're capable of doing if they start a revolution? They could attack us here directly or go after Arthur to blackmail us. We see the little baby Punch picture of him looking so cute. And Elizabeth shows a very human side. And she's like, I know we've been protecting him as much as we can, but the thought that they might harm him haunts me every day. Okay. Nice to see.
I feel like this is, I feel like this is foreshadowing a bit, you know, a little concerned. But yeah, I do like how Elizabeth does have a soft spot for Arthur. Like, that's kind of how you get to her. Like, I don't fully sympathize with her because she is still a shitty person, but, you know, I can appreciate that she has this more human side.
I think that's what I like. That's how human beings are in real life, right? Like, I'm saying, even Hitler, you know, had I'm sure he had a dog or something. Like, everyone has, you know, something. So that's what it means to be human.
I find it interesting too, like, this panel actually threw me a little bit, and this is the one that actually gets me thinking a lot out of the episode, is interesting choice of words. They didn't say ransom. They didn't just say worried about him hurting them. They said blackmail. Blackmail, meaning that there's some sort of secret surrounding, the implication is that there's some sort of secret surrounding Arthur that people don't know about yet that would be used against them. So that
All right, so now he puts his hand on her shoulder and some nice sympathetic moment, and he says, me too, Elizabeth. It seems like we might have a chance to avoid a civil war. For the sake of our people and the future of our Hollis, we should take it. And she's looking down, contemplating, you know, through her sheath of hair, and she's like, fine. Okay, wow. That's a lot of credit once again. To be able to admit, you know, and like concede defeat takes some emotional strength.
I'd say we'd see, like, it's interesting to see, like, out of all the characters that I thought would get like an arc, it would not have been Queen Lisbeth. I think we were going to see like kind of a steady trajectory there and pretty vague and on the sideline. Honestly, I pegged her as maybe being the leader.
Yeah.
I don't know if that theory's out of the running yet.
No, but I said that too. Oh my gosh.
But I mean, I don't know if that theory is out of the running yet. She could be a really great actress. You never know. Or just be so blinded by something else that she doesn't care. But in this scene, I have to say, we almost see a complete arc. Like, this is a complete, like, beginning to end story with the two of them that we didn't know we had, and also kind of sort of needed. You know, again, like you were saying, the one healthy relationship in this, it's like, okay, yeah, this is realistic human behavior, this is realistic conversation. And it's so funny to think that in a story so full of all these personalities that are, you know, very self-centered and very arrogant and very, you know, not so confident, we have two people very humbly, again, laying, like you said, Mindy, out the practicalities of the situation and actually evaluating things from a give and take and from a collective perspective. Because even though Lisbeth is kind of a little bit more self-centered when it comes to, you know, she's thinking of her child, she's thinking of her station and her husband's station, and she's thinking of the nobles, you know, at least she is still thinking of a collective there. It might not be the better of the two options from the perspective of almost everyone else, but it is more than one person that she's thinking about, which is more than we can say for a lot of the other characters in here.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that also, we were talking about character design earlier, and now I'm like noticing this. It's kind of like she has her hair down, right? And it's definitely a much more intimate and relaxed scene between the two of them. You know, they're not wearing anything fancy, really. Well, the nightgowns are still kind of fancy, but it's not like, you know, bejeweled or something.
The nightgowns, you know, they're functional.
And as you guys were saying earlier, you know, it's weird seeing her with her hair down, but it's like definitely more relaxed, more casual between them. And yeah, it's personal, and that's how you kind of get to Lisbeth, is through her son, right? Which is also personal. So
yeah, it's nice to see like the deeper side of them. So yeah, King Elizabeth turns away and he says, I've been thinking that Redcliff's wall might be a good setting for the negotiations. Like Dawkins says, his philanthropism makes him well appreciated by the public, and his participation would be a good asset to have. However, we need to know if we can trust him beforehand. It's a good call, King, good call. And the Queen's like, already on it. I've already asked Neyra to get closer to him.
Let's go. Let's go.
He's like, boy. Good. Yeah, boom, boom, exciting stuff.
Yeah, I have a lot to say on this, but I'm not sure if we want to finish up before we just completely jump all our thoughts.
Yeah. Let's finish before we jump, because we're already jumped.
We're so close.
We're chomping at the bit, man.
Wait, so does that mean no one else has anything to say?
We'll finish and then we'll share.
Are we done with the panels, or is that
it? That's it.
Oh my god.
Okay. We are. Oh my god.
Great, perfect. I know.
Okay.
For whatever reason, it feels unfinished after that. Now that's a cliffhanger.
Yeah. You know? Okay. So Darcy's gonna be at the okay. I want to say that my first thoughts is that like Bella and Darcy, they're gonna be in the same place because Bella's escorting Redcliff, right? And Darcy's literally tasked with getting closer to Redcliff, so she's gonna try and hang around Redcliff. So that means the two are inevitably gonna meet, and then we get an opera date from them. And I also commented this on the episode. I was like, this entire episode is setting up a Bella and Neyra accidental date at the opera house, and I'm here for them to be frustratedly gay around each other while everything else goes to shit and Loon has a hell of a night trying not to get exploded again.
Yeah, you got 2 top comments. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was impressed. I was like, oh shit, I was not expecting that. But you know.
Oh, it was worthy. It was worthy.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was definitely worthy.
Out of all the episodes, I will gladly take 2 top comments on the one that sets Bellarcy back up together.
But yeah, it's funny because you're like, oh, this will be a date. I'm like, this will be like an explosion of anger. Like, I don't know about date if it's the right word.
Intended. Oh my gosh. Can I just say, like, this ending summary of statements like, oh, maybe Redcliff's ball is going to be a great place to parlay with Phantom Scythe. I'm like, oh, it's a trap. Oh my gosh, you're totally going to do it, but don't do it. Bad ideas. All the bad ideas you know are bad ideas. Go ahead, guys. Go ahead with this foreshadowing. Ooh.
I want to see what Sandman has planned. Like, what is he gonna do? I'm very excited.
That is really exciting. I can't wait to see what the heck does Mrs. Green do. What does she do in her blue hair and her blue coat and her awesome lip ring? I'm gonna find out what Miss Green's got going on.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, I'm really excited to no one's surprise for again that Bella and Redcliff Darcy meetup, because like Redcliff's literally gonna be like third wheeling them, but like because the thing with that is that we still don't really know a lot about Darcy, particularly when it comes to the Phantom Scythe. Like, we don't know how much about Bella she knows, like whether she knows that Bella's in the Phantom Scythe or not. So we don't know how much Darcy may know from Bella telling her about the Phantom Scythe, or if Darcy even knows about how Redcliff is the apostle and how Bella has been like abused by him, you know, and manipulated by him and groomed by him.
I think she would know. No, sorry.
Yeah, we don't know if Bella has ever told her any of those things, and so it's a bit of a wild card with her. She probably does know that Redcliff is like, you know, he runs the circus and Bella's circus performer, so they have that relationship, but we just don't know if she knows how far that relationship goes. And so it's gonna be a very, I hate to say that it's gonna be funny, but it's gonna be hilarious because Redcliff's gonna be trying to suss out Bella, and if Bella still has feelings for Darcy, right? He's gonna be like really suspicious of her and watching her the whole time. Bella's gonna try and act normal around Darcy, and they may even have to act like they're not supposed to know each other, right? Because this may be like the first time actually like meeting in a situation where like Redcliff would be around and where he should supposedly know about it. And so like they might be pretending that they don't know each other. They're all going to know that they all know each other. And Bella's going to try and like keep Neyra probably away from Redcliff because Redcliff has that threat on Neyra's life. And then Neyra is going to be trying to figure out her ex, right? And maybe she's suspicious of Redcliff the entire time, but she doesn't know. Again, she doesn't know to what that goes to. So it's going to all very contrasting motivations and perspectives. And she's also going to be trying to suss out Redcliff. So yeah, it's going to be very fun when all of those collide.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to the rom-com sitcom kind of vibe that's gonna come from, because I actually think it's reasonable to assume that Neyra has some information. I mean, if they have an established relationship, previous intimate relationship, it's gonna come up in conversation that, you know, maybe not necessarily knowing who is who, in terms of who's in Bella's life, but she probably at least has some fundamental idea of, you know, her circumstances with the circus and working for Redcliff and whatnot. Because I mean, let's face it, when you stumble into your wifey's very large weapon collection, you kind of have some questions after that. So you're going to get some amount of answer, and it's easier to tell at least part of the truth than it is a lie. And, you know, so suffice to say, I think she knows a little bit. And also Neyra's a spy herself. So who's to say that's not something that brought them together?
Oh,
we don't know
true,
how
very
to
true.
And so I'm thinking that she knows a little bit. But what I don't think is that Redcliff knows necessarily what Neyra Darcy is all about. So it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping that it's going to be more of like a passive kind of scenario.
Yeah, same.
And it's not going to be necessarily like a Neyra and Will scenario, like, hey, people trying to get us to date, or I'm just going to fake flirt with you to get information, which, I mean, I can see that being a possibility to set up the whole Bellarcy dynamic, jealous ex dynamic. I'm hoping they don't do that, but I can totally see there being a lot of surface level, everybody knows something about somebody else, but not everybody thinks that everybody else knows.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The other thing is, so Will and Kim are going to be there, or is Lockie going to make an appearance?
We don't know about Kieran, I don't think, but I think Lauren's definitely going to be there.
Did she say she was like security?
I think she's on duty. It's going to be her first time on duty after.
Well, you know, if Lauren's there, then you know Kieran's gonna show up just by default. Just gonna be like, you know, everybody else is hanging out here. I don't want to miss the party, so here I am.
I think. Oh, sorry. Please go.
No.
Okay, I think Lauren might be on the ground. You know, so she'll be as the cop, and then if they wanted to pull Kieran into it, it could be like, you know, they realized that Redcliff is going to the party, and Lauren had an off comment a while back that she wanted to get to know Redcliff more, to look into Redcliff, or to look into more. And so she might get Kieran on that. And then, oh my God, if we bring Kieran into the situation and Bella's also kind of be going through back doors and whatever to kind of sneak in, they run into each other. And then if Kieran realizes the situation with Darcy also being there, okay, it's going to be like, again, pretty like chaotic, but then it's going to get pretty serious. But I tell you, I'm going to be laughing my head off the entire time.
Oh, it's going to be hysterical. No matter what happens, there's going to be some humor from this that's going to be very enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm expecting a lot of like sort of like the silent talk to each other where people just like scream at each other through their eyes, sort of. Where it's
like
kind of like
Lauren and Kieran on that roof, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. But it's that with like all the characters. On a more serious note and less funny note, though, if Will and Darcy are in fact going on a date, to this ball, or not to this ball, to this play. And if Bella and Redcliff like see that date, and Redcliff knows, like he recognizes Darcy, and he's like, hey, yeah, that's the woman that you were into, right? I feel like he could use Darcy's relationship with Will against Bella to be like, yeah, she doesn't need you anymore, right? Like,
nasty. I could totally see him do that, by the way, because so many Bella would have been nasty.
Yeah, I also said this before. I'm like almost certain that because Bella, Neyra, and Redcliff are all basically going to be in the same room together, I'm like very certain that Bella is gonna like reach for her knife at some point, because Redcliff's gonna make some off comment, and she's gonna reach for a knife. She's not gonna pull it out, but she's gonna like, her hand's gonna like move towards it. And I'm waiting for it.
It'll be a nice panel.
Yeah,
I like that. I like this panel predictions, not necessarily predicting what the plot's going to be, but what shots you're going to see.
Wow, we're getting specific here.
Yeah.
What
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have to
feel from the next episode. Panel predictions.
I just know there will be drama.
Yeah, I'm so hyped. I don't think I felt this excited for what PH was bringing in for a little while, but yeah, feeling suitably hyped for the next few episodes.
It's gonna be so much.
It is.
So many bombs dropped in one episode, man.
Yeah. They didn't even need a Kieran appearance, Kieran cameo.
And that, that's a sign of a good series too, is now it can carry itself without the main characters. And that's really great.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like this entire podcast just like sort of exemplifies like my love for Bella, and it's really like, this is why like Bella's my favorite character, because there's just so many facets to her, and I think she has so many, like the potential of all the dynamics with all the other characters. I like thinking about it, and yeah, I had a ton of fun recording this podcast.
I know, this was in depth. It's funny because people were like, "Oh, there's not so much going on." I'm like, "No, maybe there's not so much.
There's so much going on." Oh my gosh, there's so much subtext.
Like over 2 hours already.
Yeah.
Oh wow, it has been.
Yeah. That is like very in depth into Bella and her motivations, and also into Redcliff. So yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
We did a lot of psychological analysis.
A lot of relationship comparisons. A lot of comparisons of dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited for Bella's two worlds to collide of Redcliff and Darcy. Like, I get so excited just thinking about it, because Darcy and Redcliff are going to be like, "Oh my God, it's so nice to meet you for the first time," whatever. Like, they're going to be so pleasant with each other. And meanwhile, Redcliff's going to be like, "I know who you are," to Bella. And Neyra, as you were saying, like, she probably knows a bit about Redcliff, so she's going to be like, "You little fucker," for everything that you've done.
He's like walking down the aisle in his fancy outfit, and she's like, puts her foot there. She's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry.
I didn't see you there.
Oh, did you fall on your face? How clumsy of me."
Oh, what a shame.
You didn't hurt your earring.
Right? She like spills her champagne. Oops, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she like just completely knees him in the chest. It's like, "Oh, my bad."
She like, throws her opera glasses behind her and then accidentally pokes him in the eye. "Oh, I didn't know you were there.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't see you there."
See, we're coming up with all these.
Your hair's still good.
Awesome. Well, I think we should end this because I am super exhausted. But I'm
about to fall asleep.
I know. I've been watching you also.
I'm hanging on by a thread, man.
Yeah. Yes. Well, ladies, it was so much fun. It was a great episode. We had like some really good analysis. I'm so happy that we got to dig deep, dive into, as they say in Yiddish, into the kishkas of these characters, into the livers of these characters. Diving deep.
Yum.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to my current patrons: Susie, Lady Libris, Lily, Jenny, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Jo, Rochelle, Saucy Tuggles, and Rose, Alexa, Misty, Joanne, Imelda, Esther, I'm watching you people, Emily, Jane, Jen, Erin, Kay, Lily, Beth. Beckett, Staranda, Christine, Sadie, Kelly, Teresa, Mrs. Nostalgia, Jen, Tatiana, Louisa, and Rachel. Your support is truly appreciated.